Not every book I finish is a favorite, but every book I finish gives me something. A thought, a reaction, a reason to say more. Welcome to Collected Chapters, where I share it all. The good, the bad, and the deeply unhinged. So settle in, loves. This chapter is just the beginning. Hi loves, if you are new here, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Cammy, and more importantly, welcome to Collected Chapters, my new book review series where I sit down and tell you about all the books I've been reading, the thoughts they left me with, and everything in between. Now this series came about because I am the type of reader who doesn't typically finish enough books in a 1 or 2 month time span to sit down and do a monthly reading wrap up or even a bi-monthly reading wrap up, but I wanted a way to still incorporate book reviews and the type of books that I'm reading on my channel, hence the birth of Collected Chapters. And the first book to kick this series off is Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. In this book, we follow our main character Claudia, whose best friend Monday goes missing and no one but her seems to notice or care. As days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months, Claudia grows more desperate and worried, especially when Monday's whole family is actively avoiding her and her question. Determined to find Monday and expose the truth, Claudia begins unraveling a mystery and uncovering chilling secrets that leads to a haunting question. How can a girl disappear without a trace? Now, Tiffany D. Jackson never writes a book without a heavy message, and this one is definitely no exception. It's been about 4 months since I finished this, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that happened. As the daughter of a social worker, this story really hit and broke my heart in so many ways because what happens in this book isn't just fiction, it's reality for far too many children. The way Tiffany really explores the neglect and the abuse and the failures of the system put in place meant to protect kids is devastating, but it's also necessary because these stories deserve to be told. Claudia's determination to find Monday was so raw and relentless because to the outside world it might have seemed as if Monday just needed space, or maybe she just didn't want to be friends anymore, but Claudia knew better because she knew her. Monday wasn't just her best friend, she was like her sister, so immediately she knew something was wrong. And watching her try so hard to get the adults in her life to listen only to be constantly brushed off was frustrating, but it's also the entire point. Children are told to trust the adults, to talk to your teachers, to talk to your parents. But what happens when those same people don't listen or brush them off completely? This book is an example of that reality. Even if a child is being overdramatic or labeled as just being a kid, every concern should be took seriously. This story is actually based and inspired by a true case, what makes it all the more haunting because children deserve love. They deserve safety, they deserve care, they deserve to be believed, and honestly, both Claudia and Monday were failed by the people that were supposed to protect them. The aftermath of that loss and what it did to Claudia, not only mentally but emotionally, was so painful to witness. But unfortunately, we exist in a society where it is normal to mind your business rather than step in when something looks wrong. This story serves as a reminder that action can be just as harmful as silence, and that it really does take a village to raise a child, but it's up to that village to actually show up. Monday's Not Coming is one of those books that demand that you sit with it and let it weigh on you for what it is. It is heartbreaking, it is raw, it is honest, but it's also important. 4 stars. The next book on our list today is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. In this book, we follow our main character, Chloe, a computer geek living with a chronic illness who plans to get a life after a near-death experience. She creates a list including things like ride a motorcycle, go camping, do something bad, but the first step, move out of her loving but at times overbearing family's mansion. This is when she recruits Redford Morgan, her grumpy handyman, to help her check off all her boxes. But as Chloe dives into her list, she starts to discover Red's hidden depths, like why he resents her wealthy background, why he hides his art from the world, and more importantly, what lies beneath his rough exterior. Now this book was really good. I did enjoy it. I thought it was super cute. I love Chloe and her personality, both the one she puts up front to the world and then the one you see when you really get to know her. I think she is a very complex character, and watching her discover herself and open up bit by bit was one of my favorite parts. I love her determination to take her life into her own hands and her refusal to be defined by what she has to live with or what happened to her. I found that strength to be really inspiring. Redford stuck with me a character as well. In the book, a big plus for me is when you have a male main character who is not afraid to feel. And though Redford came off as grumpy and off-putting in the beginning, I loved how soft his character became, especially when it came to Chloe, not only helping her with her list, but helping her with her day-to-day life and the minor adjustments she has to make because of her chronic illness. And speaking of that, I really do appreciate Talia's portrayal through Chloe's character of what a chronic illness looks like. I myself do not live with a CI, so I cannot speak on its accuracy. However, it felt like she approached it with a lot of intention and care. And it really helped me as the reader understand Chloe's narrative and how she navigates the world. I love how Chloe pushed Red to believe his art again, and in turn, Red pushing Chloe to complete her list and reminding her that she's just as capable. These characters really held space for each other's fears and uplifted one another, and I think that added a very beautiful dynamic between the two. I think it also really hinted at this book's theme and the message behind it, which is really to not let your past define who you are or dictate what you can be. 4 stars. Now this next book I read digitally, and that is Sincerely Her Gangster by Maya. In this book we follow Honesty Samuel. She is newly single, heartbroken, and completely focused on motherhood until she is pulled into the dangerous life of Sincere Allen, a feared and ruthless man with a painful past. As their lives collide, these two damaged souls must decide if love and healing are possible or if their scars run too deep. Now, you know how in my intro I go, not every book I finish is a favorite, but every book I finish gives me something. Well, this was one of those rare cases where the book didn't give me enough because I honestly couldn't tell you a single thought I had while reading it. Now, to let you in on my whole book reviewing process, immediately after finishing a book, I will always record a voice memo. That way my fresh and real and honest thoughts are all out there so I don't forget them the next day. But for some reason, I did not do that for this book, and no matter how many times I reread the synopsis, I skim the pages, or I go through my Kindle highlights, I couldn't form a single thought. My mind goes blank. But what I can say, honestly and truthfully, is that Sincere's rich. He never hesitated to drop a bag on Honesty even before they were together. And for that alone, 3 stars. Now with this next book, I didn't have that problem at all because I think about it often, and that is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. In this book, we follow Bree Prescott as she arrives in the town of Pea Lion, Maine, hoping to find peace and solitude from all her troubles. On her first day there, her life collides with Archer Hale, an isolated man who holds a secret agony of his own, a man no one else seems to see. But baby, let me tell you something, I saw him loud and clear. I love this book. I originally picked it up wanting the same vibes as Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren, and I think it delivered, but in its own unique way. I wasn't sure that I was a fan of the writing style at first, but as I kept going, I realized that it was for a purpose. The way that Mia really layered in emotion and the way that she told these character stories really hit just right. Now, this book is definitely a bit tragic. Both Bree and Archer have lost their parents in equally tragic ways, but watching them connect through that pain and that grief and seeing how they're both moving through it was really moving. As I said before, I really love a main character, especially a male main character, who knows how to feel and is not afraid to show it. Though Archer didn't really know how to display his emotions in a healthy way at first, it was really interesting to watch him explore it and learn the way that worked best for him. He grew up so isolated and unsure how to navigate a world that never made space for him, but Bree really saw him, not as somebody that was weird or broken, but somebody that was worth knowing and especially worth loving. They helped each other grow, they helped each other find themselves, and the result of that process was very satisfying to see. To me, this is a good example of a book that is heartbreakingly beautiful. 4 stars. For the next book on our list, we have What a Match by Mimi Grace. In this book, we follow our main character, Gwen Gilmore. She's newly single and is determined to find her ideal man, so she enlists the help of a professional matchmaker. But when her brother's grumpy best friend, who's had a crush on her since forever, crashes on her couch, sparks starts to fly. As they grow closer, Gwen really starts to question whether love follows a plan or has the right man been in her face all along. Now, this is book 2 in the Love Search series, and I kind of wish that I would have read book 1 before. That book follows Gwen's older brother Duncan, and I feel that in that book we might have got minor character details or development specifically between Gwen and Anthony that would have made this one feel more complete. Gwen talks about how her entire family goes to therapy before her parents' divorce, and I feel like that season in her life really shapes how she approaches love and relationships. But here we don't get to sit with her in that moment. We're more so seeing the aftermath of her father having already moved on and her mom putting herself back out there again. So it kind of makes sense why she clings to this idea of being 100% compatible with the man. But when her best friend kind of hints that she may have feelings for Anthony, she completely shuts it down. She immediately assumes that they're not a match. He's too grumpy, he's too quiet, but she's never really had a real conversation with him, judging him entirely based on his surface and the way that he presents himself to people he doesn't know well. She never really takes the time to get to know him, and especially not even the beginning. And even when things shift and they start hooking up, they're only just skating the surface. All their questions and conversations are about what they're doing at work or what they're doing in that moment. There's never really any death being explored. Anthony's side is a little different. Nothing ever happened for him to completely avoid relationships. He's just not an outgoing romantic, and his hesitation towards Gwen comes from this quiet insecurity. He thinks Gwen is looking for a man that fits this specific mold, which she is, but he just automatically assumes that it can never be him. And I think that's what really gets me. They had ample amount of opportunities to try and have a connection and have conversations to build something, but they never take it. They only let assumptions and silence fill that void. That personally made it really hard for me to invest in them as a couple. All in all, I did enjoy the vibes of the book. I enjoyed the scenery, but there were definitely a lot of missed opportunities. 3.5 stars. Now, speaking of missed opportunities, this next book missed all of them, and that is Spring Break in Savannah with a Gangsta by O'Shara. In this book, we follow our main character, Brasher Durden, who hasn't had the easiest life. He's a senior at Clayton State University. He is overworked, underpaid, and constantly fighting off debt. The only good thing in his life seems to be his girlfriend, Bria Malone. Now, Bria grew up in foster care, where love wasn't something she ever experienced, so when she meets Brasher, she falls for him hard. She becomes his ride or die, proving to him time and time again that her love for him runs deeper than his financial struggle. And this is when Blessing Harris comes to play. A widowed man with $1 million drug org, he has the whole world at his hands. But no amount of money or material things can fill the void in his heart, until he sees Bria and is reminded of his lost love and is determined that he must have her no matter the price. This book was sick. First, you have a man in his 30s having relations with a 19-year-old who, according to the book, he has been with since she was 15. That is not romantic. That is not love. That is not attraction. That is predatory behavior. And one of the main characters themselves, Blessing, is in his early 30s when his love interest, Bria, is freshly 20. And when I say freshly 20, I mean she comes on this trip for her 19th birthday, and they meet at midnight on her 20th birthday. Baby wasn't even 20 for 5 minutes before he started hitting on her. And while some may argue that that's technically okay, it is still a very weird dynamic. Why can't these men date women their own age? I mean, I'm 20. I've only been 20 for about 4 months. And if somebody that was even 29, 32 were to come up and talk to me, get the hell on. What do we have to talk about? Nothing. When the synopsis said that he must have her no matter the price, in my head, I'm like, oh, he's about to drop a couple bags on her. No, he buys her. Brasher literally sells Bria, as if he has the right to do that, to Blessing for $800,000. All so that he can pay off his car note, his student loan debts, and pay for his grandmother's cancer treatment. As if that's Bria's problem. Let me tell you something. It's not. And I don't feel bad for him at all. Bria grew up in foster care. She never had any real family. She never had any real stability until she aged out of it and was able to go to college herself. And the fact that he knew that but would still put his financial burdens and everything that he had going on her, knowing that she didn't know what an example of a healthy relationship was sick. It was truly sick. And then it was the fact that after he quote unquote sells her, he tries to buy her back and Blessing refused. Like, what did you think was happening here? The entire plot was just bizarre, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything or calling anyone out on it, but I really do hope that this book does not represent any unsolved trauma or like deep-seated thoughts, because nothing about this was okay. And if it isn't obvious, 1 star. I rated this book 1 star. Now, to pick things up on a positive note, we have Rafe by Rebecca Witherspoon. In this book, we follow our main character, Dr. Sloane Copeland. She is newly single, recently divorced, and a mother of 2 rambunctious twin girls getting settled in their new life in Los Angeles, when all of a sudden their living nanny bails with no warning. This is when Rafe Whitcomb enters the chat. It doesn't take long for the Copelands to invite them into their home. And just as quickly, Sloane and Rafe realize they are heavily attracted to each other with no desire to deny it. With every minute they spend together, Sloane can't help but wonder if Rafe can handle all her needs. And spoiler alert, he definitely can. I really don't have much to critique or analyze about this book because it's rare to find a story where you're not getting the whole runaround. I mean, no third act breakup. You have an FMC who is confident and knows it. You have an MMC who goes for exactly what he wants, and the spice was phenomenal. Everything was straight to the point, and I love that. I will say, however, I wish it was a bit longer because the ending kind of left something to be desired. But other than that, no complaints. 4 stars. And just as we started with a heavy hitter, we're going to end this episode with a heavy hitter, and that is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Now, for the few of you who may not know what this is about, this book gives us a glimpse into the lives of African American women in the early 20th century. Specifically, the lives of Celie and Nettie. Separated as girls, they carried their loyalty, love, and hope for each other across time, distance, and silence in a series of letters spanning 20 years. First from Celie to God, then from the sisters to each other. Honestly, it is so easy to see why this book is considered a classic. I fell in love with the movie when I was younger, and in more recent years, the musical. Reading this book really just deepened that love for Celie and even for Nettie and Suge. This book is written in the format of letters and made each one of them feel so intimate, whether it was from Celie to God or Celie to Nettie. Watching each character's relationship with God evolve, especially Celie's, was so painful and beautiful and moving to watch. Alice Walker didn't sugarcoat a thing when it comes to this book. It is so real and honest and raw. It makes you sit with discomfort because that discomfort is truth. It is the unflinching and graphic truth of Black women in the early 20th century. The lyricism of this book was really one of my favorite parts. The way Alice really took Celie's story and kind of weaved it to make it sound like a symphony carries a lot of weight and just hits you deep. 4 stars. Alright loves, that is all that I have for you today. I am pretty satisfied with our lineup for this episode. I feel like you get a good glimpse of my taste as a reader. If you have made it to the end of the episode, let's leave purple hearts and love letter emojis for the color purple. I will see you all in my next video, but until then, happy reading.